Summer break is officially here for the NFL, front offices, coaching staff, and of course, the players are all going away for the next several weeks. But we still have a bunch of storylines that are going to be hovering around the offseason. We're going to go through the five biggest ones here as we go into summer break. NFL Spotlight starts now. Welcome in. It is the Friday, June 13th edition of the NFL Spotlight Show. I am your host, Ari Meirov. It's officially summer break for most of the NFL. Only one team, I believe, still has mandatory minicamp going on next week, but it's kind of a vacation for them also. The Rams are doing their minicamp in Hawaii, so that's pretty fun. But the rest of the NFL, they are officially done. Everyone is going away, and NFL Spotlight will still be here during most of that time. But as we go into the summer break for everyone around the NFL, we're going to talk about some of the biggest things that are still out there. Let me bring in my good friend Ben Allen. Ben, what is going on? It is good to see you. We're not going on break, but everyone else is.
No, I think when we were back in school, summer break was always the thing we looked forward to. And I'm sure the NFL players are kind of the same way. But as we in the media sit back and look at what's going to be coming for this upcoming season, we have to look at what those biggest storylines are going to be. You can only say so many times in a row, will the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, before you get bored and realize there's a whole lot else going on around the NFL. So today, the big question being posed to you are, what are the five biggest storylines that you're looking into as we start to begin this part of the summer break for the teams?
Yeah, we'll go one by one here. And my number one thing here is we still have a lot of quality free agents who are still out there. And most of these guys, some of these guys purposely have decided they're not going to sign, whether it's they don't want to be doing mandatory minicamp and OTAs, or the offers throughout the course of the offseason have not been great. And they were like, you know what? We're going to wait for training camp to start. And when training camp gets here, the pads go on. These coaches realize some of the players we have on the team are not as good as we thought. We have to add somebody else, and those markets go up. Or those inevitable season-ending injuries, which are always unfortunate and it always sucks, it's going to happen. And as a result, there's going to be markets going up here around the NFL. So I look at some of the free agents who are out there. Most recently, we had Jair Alexander cut. But aside from him, you look at Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper is still out there, Zadarius Smith is out there, Matthew Judon is out there, Jadeveon Clowney is out there, people looking for offensive lineman help. Brandon Scherff is still out there, Stefon Gilmore, who does this basically every year, waits until training camp. He is still out there. Rasul Douglas, who is a pretty good corner, who I know has a number of offers, but is waiting for the right situation. He's still out there. Kendall Fuller, a quality cornerback, is out there. Von Miller, who has said he wants to continue playing, he is still out there. There is a plethora of names. A former guest here on the show, Kaiser White, one of the few linebackers who's on the market, who's a quality player, has a lot of starts. He is still on the market right now. So there's a long list of players here who could definitely help teams around the NFL. And like I said before, for one reason or another, they are still free agents. They'll likely still be free agents during this summer break. But once we come back, you could expect a lot of these names to fly off the board, and that is likely going to happen here in the next 5 to 6 weeks before everyone reports back.
Do you think a lot of these guys like a Stefon Gilmore that tend to wait this long, do you think that it is more, let me rephrase this. Do you think that if they had just decided that they were going to come off the market earlier, they may have benefited financially with how much money they're going to get? Or does this waiting game really come down to more about fit?
A lot of these guys, first of all, most of these guys were not getting the money they wanted. I mean, especially those two receivers at the top, Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper. When free agency started, there were two separate markets out there. There was what Stephon Diggs got, Devontae Adams got, Cooper Kupp got, which was decent money. That's where Keenan Allen and Amari Cooper thought they're going to fall in. Their market actually kind of fell into some of these other guys who signed on those 1-year deals. Mike Williams got like a 1-year, $5 million deal. Those were the type of offers they were getting. So as a result, they were like, we're not signing that right now. So they decided to wait. Other players around the NFL, Stefon Gilmore especially, they like waiting until training camp. They don't want to go through all this summer stuff and be in the 100-degree heat and all this mandatory stuff or get fined, whatever. They're
Oh,
like,
so
we'll
you
just
think a lot of it has to do with the off-season workouts, not even necessarily like finding that right fit where you know you can be CB2 or something like that.
There are definitely some players who do think like that. I mean, you could speak to agents out there who would tell you, like, I could get my player right now to this team, and he's like, no, I'd rather just wait because that offer is still going to be there. Like, if it's a mediocre offer, it's not going to go off the table. So there's varying situations over here for every single player who is out there on the market. Everybody is different over here, but every situation is different. But usually, as you get closer to training camp, and especially once that first week of training camp ends, a lot of these personnel people put on the tape from practice and they're like, all right, we thought we're pretty deep at corner, but we're realizing these guys are not fully ready and they won't be good enough for us in week one. Let's go sign that proven veteran. That's really what Stefon Gilmore has done these last several years. Last year it was in Minnesota, the year before it's Dallas, the year before that India. Every single time he's able to find that team that makes sense for him during training camp. So these guys are going to come off the board eventually, but this is part of the reason why they're still out there.
Interesting. All right. Well, we'll definitely be keeping an eye on the free agent market. What's another storyline or area of focus that you've got as we enter the summertime?
So obviously we have the guys who are not on teams right now. Then we have the guys who are on teams but are also waiting to get paid, and that is the very, very long list of players who need extensions. Now, of course, we just had mandatory minicamp. We saw some players not show up. That would include TJ Watt. That would include Trey Hendrickson. That would include Terry McLaurin. All those guys are looking for long-term deals, but there's more players aside from them who are also part of that list. I'll go through some of them over here, but you look at a Cortland Sutton, a Garrett Wilson, a Drake London, Rashawn Slater, the offensive lineman with the Chargers, who could become the highest paid offensive tackle in football. Colton Miller, another offensive tackle with the Raiders. Trey Smith is the only franchise tag player left. That is a July 15 deadline there. And from my understanding, the Chiefs are going to revisit those talks over here in the near future after this summer break is over. Tyler Linderbaum in Baltimore, Kyle Hamilton in Baltimore. You have Nick Bonito in Denver. You have Zach Allen. You have Micah Parsons, of course. You have potentially Aiden Hutchinson in Detroit. You have Sauce Gardner with the Jets, Trent McDuffie in Kansas City, Derwin James, even a kicker like Brandon Aubrey, who will likely become, not likely, will become the highest paid kicker in the NFL once that deal is done. We have a flurry of players here who need new long-term contract extensions, and a bunch of them could potentially be record-setting contracts for their position. We have two quarterbacks out there as well who could happen this offseason, might not, but Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson, those two guys could use extensions as well. It doesn't have to be now, but would not surprise me if they at least start those talks here at some point as well. So that is another big part of this as well. We saw a lot of extensions get done in March, April, May, June. Eventually, July is a little bit of an off period, but end of July, that's when these things really, really pick up over here. And we start getting these flurry of extensions, and those who are not done, that's when you start getting those hold-ins in training camp and those type of things. So that's going to be a topic as well over here these next several weeks as some of these negotiations have started. Maybe they'll take a bit of a break, but eventually it's going to pick up again, and then we're going to have a flurry of big deals over here in the coming months.
Sounds good to me. All right, Ari, what's number 3?
Yeah, number 3 is going to be the trade market. Now, there's a lot of players out there who at least have been tossed around in trades. We've heard of, Kyle Pitt's name is out there. Jonnu Smith's name has been out there. Jaylen Ramsey is obviously a very big one. He was not a mandatory minicamp either, but that was not because of a contract. That's because the team and the agent, the player all agreed we're not going to show up here as we wait to trade you. His contract is not an easy one to trade. So there is a bunch of players out there who are kind of expendable or no longer a fit with their team, where it's like, when are these guys going to get traded? Will it happen during these 5-6 weeks over here when two GMs happen to be on a beach somewhere and they figure it out? You never know. Those things could happen. So we're going to be watching the trade market as well, and especially once training camp does start. And again, once all these guys get on the field and the pads get on, eventually you start realizing on your team, we need this. We have too many of that. And that's essentially when you start getting all these trades happening as well. Every single year, each team has to reduce their rosters from 90 to 53 eventually. So they try to get, if it's a 7th round pick, a 6th round pick, a swap of picks, whatever it is, just to move on from a player who will eventually get cut anyway. So those type of things are also going to happen over here. But the big names we mentioned before, the Jaylen Ramsey, the Kyle Pitts situation in Atlanta, I think is a very interesting one where I think the front office wants to keep him. The coaching staff is kind of not a big fan of his. So we're going to see how all of those things unfold over here as well. And again, GMs are going away on vacation. That doesn't mean that they don't have their phones on them. So you never know when some of these deals could also end up getting done.
Of the players that you think have the potential of being traded, is there one that you think is going to have the steepest price tag?
It's a good question. And really, I'm trying to think of some players who are out there. If the Bengals were ever to move on from Trey Hendrickson, I think they could get a second round pick right now. But I don't see them moving on from him at all right now. But even if it was a first round pick, I think they would say no to it right now, surprisingly. So I think he would have the highest price tag of any player out there. I'm trying to think of some other players out here
Like,
who
what is
might be
Ramsey?
above.
Like, what's the real price on a guy like Jalen Ramsey
Well,
right
you
now?
think of Jalen Ramsey. First of all, he has a very big contract. That's number one.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's up there in age as well. His play is still good. It's not first team All Pro Jalen Ramsey, but a good player. But remember when he was traded from the Rams to the Dolphins? That was, I believe, a third round pick and tight end Hunter Long. The value wasn't anything crazy back then. So I would expect it to be somewhere in that fifth round pick range. Because again, if the team is taking on the contract as well, that's a big part of this. The Dolphins are willing to eat some money. Maybe they're able to essentially buy a draft pick and get something higher, but that's kind of where we are right now. Kirk Cousins, another name out there where I don't think he gets traded. He kind of said this week that he's moving forward in Atlanta. And of course, he has a no trade clause as part of his deal in Atlanta. So he's likely going to stay over there. But this stuff kind of percolates, especially once teams go on the field and see what they really have with the players putting on the pads. And that's when we'll be here on the show and mentioning, okay, this is happening, that's happening, this is not happening. That's when a lot of these front offices and executives really have a good understanding of what's going on around the league.
Fair enough. All right, Ari, what's next?
All right, let's go to something that's going to happen kind of on the field once training camp officially hits, but it's the quarterback battles. And I think there's two pretty notable ones. It's in Miami, not Miami. It's in Cleveland and Indianapolis. Not sure why Miami's in my head, but yes, Cleveland. Of course, they have four quarterbacks there with Joe Flacco, the veteran, Kenny Pickett, who they traded for, and of course, two quarterbacks they drafted: third round pick Dylan Gabriel, and then fifth round pick Shedeur Sanders. Who comes out on top in that quarterback competition? That's going to be a big one. And I already could see all the videos and cameras talking about, ooh, Shedeur did this versus the Browns defense, not mentioning it's like the fifth string defense. So there's a lot of those things going on over here. That's going to be a big topic, of course, in Cleveland. Who does Kevin Stefanski pick? And I don't think they're going to have a lot of time over here to figure this out, because you want your starting offense to know who's going to be the starting quarterback, who's going to be around the other 10 guys on the offense. I don't think this is one that can kind of go on the entire training camp over here. So I think after 2 weeks max, they're going to have to make a decision, because there are so many reps to go around over here that you can't just split first team reps with four guys over here. So they're going to have to figure that one out pretty early there in Cleveland. The other one is in Indianapolis, which obviously it was supposed to be Anthony Richardson versus Daniel Jones. Richardson is now dealing with this shoulder injury, which I'll just say this, there's a lot of, it's just clouds over it. Like, people are trying to figure out how legit this thing is. Is it something serious? Is it not? Shane Steichen's answers at his podium press conferences are, it's suspect, if I'll be honest with you. Maybe he'll be back out there at the start of training camp and all is good, but shoulder injury, AC joint, same shoulder, goes to Dr. Neil Elatrash, second opinion. I don't like hearing this stuff. It just doesn't sound good. So Daniel Jones, I think, has the upper hand over here for that starting job. And if Richardson could some way, somehow be there for the start of training camp, maybe it becomes a competition again. But those two in particular feel like legitimate situations of here that we're going to have to figure out. We all thought Pittsburgh might be part of it as well, but of course, they signed Aaron Rodgers officially, and he is obviously QB1 there.
If Richardson does end up remaining injured or clearly becomes not QB1 in the eyes of the Colts, does he move into that trade candidate area? And do you think that there's any suitors that would actually fork over any real value, a la a Trey Lance type trade that the Cowboys did a couple of years ago with a pick that was at least wasn't a first round pick, but it was at least something.
It was a fourth round pick for a player who barely played. But no, I think the Colts are going to keep both quarterbacks all year. That was Chris Ballard's plan the entire time. And you kind of should give credit to Chris Ballard for realizing that I'm going to sign a different quarterback who could be a starting quarterback because Richardson has barely been healthy. And here we go again. So at least he has some other option over here. But let's not pretend that Daniel Jones has been the healthiest quarterback either. He's had his own fair of injuries as well. So keeping both guys only makes sense. And you hope at least one of them will be healthy by the time the season starts and you're able to go into the year with one of those two guys as your quarterbacks. You don't want Riley Leonard, who you drafted late in the draft, to be under center at some point early in the year. So it only makes sense to keep both guys, even if you get an offer of a fourth round pick or something like that.
And with the other team you mentioned, the Cleveland Browns, like Deshaun Watson's going to be injured. He won't be one of the 5 quarterbacks. That cuts the list down to 4. You draft 2 quarterbacks, Dylan Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders. You trade for Kenny Pickett. You already signed Joe Flacco. Which of those do you think the team is going to look at as most expendable? Like, Joe Flacco might have the ability to go start somewhere immediately if an injury were to occur. But do you see them maybe going the route of cutting maybe a Shedeur Sanders, trying to sign him to the practice squad, as opposed to maybe trying to flip Pickett again? Do you think there's interest in a guy like him for another team that's like, hey, you might see him as QB3. We might actually like him as a backup. Like, do you think there's any reality there that they could trade one of those 4 players?
Flacco is getting. I will see what happens with Kenny Pickett. There are some people in that building who look at him as a maybe we could do a project like other teams have done, whether it was the Geno, the Darnold, the Bakers, and out there and see something out of Kenny Pickett. But it's going to be a true situation of you're figuring out which one of these 4 are obviously going to be the starter. But also, if we only keep 3, which one are we letting go of? And are we cutting one of our rookies, which would be a waste of a draft pick, I guess. Maybe he passes through waivers and he ends up on the practice squad, but that's going to be a very fascinating part as well. But I also would be remiss not to mention 2 other quarterback situation, which I guess, skipped over because I think I know what's going to happen. But the same situation with Tyler Shuck and then Spencer Rattler, I think that's going to be an interesting one to watch as well. If Shuck just shows enough, I think he'll be the starting quarterback, but I would not discount Spencer Rattler in that competition. And then the Giants one as well. I don't think they're going to, just throw Jackson Dart right away into the woods. I think Russell Wilson will win that job, but that's another one over here that at least we'll monitor over here because there was a time, once upon a time, when Russell Wilson was a rookie himself and they signed Matt Flynn to this big contract, and then Russell Wilson became the week 1 starting quarterback in Seattle years ago. So I think I know what's going to happen in both those situations, but I guess let's lump that in as well over here with Indy and Cleveland.
I think we got one left here, Ari. What's up?
The last one is something we've talked about a lot over here on the show, and I never thought it would become such a big topic, but the rookie contract situation, let's keep an eye on that one. So obviously there's the first round pick of ShaMarr Stewart. That one, we'll see what happens. It's literally a war between 2 sides. But then the second round picks is also very interesting. So I believe from the entire 2025 NFL draft, only 50 picks approximately are still unsigned. 30 are coming from that second round. So when is the second round going to start getting moving? And if people did not hear our episode a few weeks ago, essentially what's going on is the first pick of the second round and the second pick of the second round, Jaden Higgins, who was the second pick of the second round, he got a fully guaranteed contract, the first ever second round pick to get that. As a result, the first pick of the second round, which was Carson Schlesinger, he also got a fully guaranteed contract. So now the rest of the second round, the third pick of the second round, starting with him, which is Nick Emanwari of the Seattle Seahawks, the safety, they all also want fully guaranteed contracts. So the way this stuff works is if Nick Emanwari gets one, that means Quinshon Judkins, who's the next pick after, is also going to want one. So who's going to be the agent who ends up taking less than a fully guaranteed contract? And will there be a different team who also gives a fully guaranteed contract? It's essentially a staring match of the entire second round. So when is that going to get moving? I have no idea, but I don't remember the last time we had this many picks from one round just stuck the way it is right now. And maybe it's still going to be stuck by the time we get to training camp. You never know. And it's going to be 30 picks in one round that are just, we're not signed yet.
Could you see Quinshon Judkins in particular maybe leapfrogging some of those guys, Nick and Mwari ahead of him because they've already given it to Carson Schweshender? Like, could there be an opportunity where they just go, hey, you already gave the other second round pick it, like,
Yeah.
why not us? As opposed to it just being the top 34 players get guaranteed contracts. Like, it seems like that's what it's working towards.
I mean, that's how it's going to work. I mean, essentially, if Quinton Judkins does get a fully guaranteed deal, the Seahawks' hands will be tied. They must give a fully guaranteed contract. So, Nick and Minwari's people are kind of rooting for Judkins, like, hey, you got this, make it happen. Because if it does, it makes their life easier. But right now, the Seahawks and Nick Minwari are in a staring match, and that is not moved right now. So, if Nick does sign at some point over here, we'll see the details of the contract. We'll know if it's not a fully guaranteed contract. The rest of the second round goes back to the same way it always was. Go look at how it went last year, maybe go up by 0.5% and move forward. But if Nick Minwari gets a fully guaranteed contract, you are sure that Quinton Junkins will be trying to get one as well in the rest of the second round. So for now, it's a staring match. And again, just for minicamp to end, mandatory stuff to end, and this not be resolved yet, it's kind of weird. And we'll see if there's any negotiations going on during this dead period. And if not, what if training camp gets here? Are some of these guys going to sit out? Are they going to try to be like, we're not going on the practice field? And as a result, he seems like, we need our rookies on the field. Let's just give in. Like, what's going to happen? So it's a very fascinating conversation that I did not think would take this long, but it is taking this long, and we still don't have an answer there.
Why do you think Travis Hunter hasn't signed yet?
That's also a very unique one, and that is one around the NFL that people are like, what is taking so long over here with this one? I'm not really sure what he wants over here. I do think that his agents, who are, I wouldn't call them new, but they're not people who have had top picks in the past. They are trying to change some things over here because of how much of a unique player he is, where he could do offense and defense. I'm just not really sure what they're trying to change. That's some of the rumblings that are going on around the NFL. I don't know if that is void language, offset language, payment due, those type of things. I'm not really sure what it is. I've not looked into it too far, but there have been some rumblings around the league that they're trying to do something that is not the usual. But I would expect him to be on the field. I'm not expecting a ShaMarr Stewart type of a situation here with Travis Hunter, but whatever they're trying to do, I think that's part of the reason. And it would not surprise me if this one also takes a little bit longer than expected.
Since we've mentioned ShaMarr's name, and I know we've talked ad nauseum about him recently, I saw this whole thing about he could potentially just like not sign and try to re-enter the draft next year. Is there any reality to that where that's in any way possible?
So I would never rule out anything with these agents. Like we've spoken a lot about them. I think they are just interesting people. I'll just put it like that. But I don't think it would make any logical sense to do that as the 17th overall pick in the draft. If you give me a second right now, I'll just tell you how much he is guaranteed to get over here as soon as he puts pen to paper. It's going to be a 4-year contract with a 5th-year team option, and he would get, ready for this, Ben, it is going to be a 4-year deal worth $18.9 million with $10.4 million coming through as a signing bonus. So would you really say goodbye to that money in exchange of going back into the draft and probably going later in the draft, I would imagine? I mean, you never know what's going to end up going. I just think people are looking for things to talk about right now. I've seen people be like, oh, he's going to miss the next 2 years and become an undrafted free agent. Like, are you guys out of your minds? Like, are you really going to sign for the minimum to go be with a team? Because like, come on, like, let's be real over here. So I don't think that's what's going to happen. There's these two sides need to figure it out. They're both dug in. They're both very just their own ways. I'm not surprised it's happening, but that's kind of where we are right now, and we'll see if it gets resolved. Obviously, there was the report out there on Thursday morning that he was not there at mandatory minicamp. It's his agent saying, like, get out of there, who cares? But minicamp for the Bengals ended this morning at 10 a.m., so there really wasn't much for him to do anyways there. So I guess it's just a nice way of getting the news out there even more about him. But we'll see what happens in the next 6 weeks if they finally figure something out.
Summer break time, Ari. Summer break time. That's where everyone's headed out to. Make sure you guys are subscribed to us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, or Apple Podcasts. And check out, we've got a special guest coming up on Tuesday, Ari. I think you can give another hint here. I think you've already given it is an NFC general manager. What's the next hint you want to drop?
All right. NFC general manager who has been a general manager for less than 4 years. Is that good? Is that a good hint?
Sure.
Do some research
Yeah.
on that. Yeah, do some
Yeah,
research on
I
that.
have no idea what the number of GMs I don't think we gave any, obviously didn't give anything away, but I think that list is definitely
I don't
shorter
want to
than the
give
alternative.
I don't want to give the division because if I do, I think it's easier to figure
The
out.
vision.
Um, should I go there? Should we do it, Ben?
No. I just like calling it the vision, as if what, as if
No, the
he really
division,
wants
not
to
the
win some
vision.
games.
The
That's your hint.
vision.
He's an NFC general manager who wants to win in 2025.
No, the division, not the vision.
Oh, division. I thought you said the vision. I was like,
No,
Ari's really going out on a limb here, giving you guys all of the secrets of who the guy's going to be. His vision is to win games in 2025.
Yeah, but we'll officially reveal who this person is on Monday's episode when we are back. That's how we're gonna do it here. But NFC GM, who's been a GM for under 4 years, so you could eliminate Jason Light and Les Snead and a bunch of other guys there in the NFC, but you'll have a hard time figuring out exactly who this is
And
until
wants to win games.
and wants to win games. But that will do it here for our Friday, June 13 edition of the NFL Spotlight Show. We will be back here on Monday morning to start a new week. We will go over whatever else is happening around the NFL, and you will figure out who is our special Spotlight guest of the week on Tuesday. We will see you all then. Have a great week.